Well, let's bring you breaking news, and that's about Ron Jones talking about rugby. England's rugby coach has just been sacked, and that's amid poor results. Remember, the English and rugby team have been in a very terrible form of late, and as a result, Ron Jones has been dismissed from his job. So England will be in search of a new coach. That's coming from the world of rugby. But let's talk about basketball. The NBA season is coming in its thick. Talking about the regular season, and you had the Dallas Mavericks in action. It was against the best team in the Western Conference, the Phoenix Suns, and it was Luka Doncic starring for the Dallas Mavericks once again. Quite a convincing win, especially with that blistering first quarter where it was a 33-15 score in favor of the Mavericks. Luka Doncic finished that with 33 points as the Mavericks won the game 130-111 points. And you had Spencer Dinwiddie also contributing 21 points. Christian Wood scored 18 points, also amassed 9 boards, while Josh Green contributed 16 points to the cause of the Mavericks. For the Phoenix Suns, it was Devin Booker who was restricted. He was tamed, if you want to call it that, to just 11 points, while you had DeAndre Ayton top scoring for them with 20 points. Cameron Payne had 14 points, and you had Josh Okogie also scoring 12 points for the Phoenix Suns. Well, let's still talk basketball, but move away from there now. Let's turn our attention to the Indiana Pacers against the defending champions, the Golden State Warriors. You had Indiana Pacers outplaying the Warriors, as it were, 112-104 points. That ended in favor of the Pacers, and the Pacers are now 13 wins and 11 losses to the season, while for the Golden State Warriors, they are now 13 wins and 12 losses to the start of their title defense. Not a good start for Steve Kerr's men. You had Klay Thompson scoring 28 points in there, but this was a game in which talisman Steph Curry struggled. It was limited to just 12 points in the game. It was rookie Andrew Nembhard who starred for the Pacers, scoring 31 points, amassing 13 assists, as well as 8 boards in this one. You also had Buddy Hield with 17 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists to go in terms of complementing Nembhard's effort. Now, you should understand that the Pacers were really on demand going into this. Tyrese Haliburton was out for his second straight game due to a sore left groin. You also had Chris Duarte out due to a left ankle sprain. Daniel Thirst as well, right knee surgery, and ruled him out. Not forgetting Miles Turner as well as James Johnson, who are battling with a sore right hamstring and sprained right elbow respectively. So let's still talk basketball now. Talk about the Boston Celtics. I said earlier that they are the best team in the NBA this season, and that's because they are the first to 20 wins this season. No team has a better record than the Boston Celtics, and you have to look at Jason Tatum. You have to talk about Jaylen Brown as well as the Defensive Player of the Year. I'm talking about Marcus Smart behind that amazing run of the Boston Celtics. 116-110 points victory over the Toronto Raptors. Jason Tatum starring with 31 points, amassed 12 boards in there. You had Jaylen Brown with 22 points. Marcus Smart, the Defensive Player of the Year, with 18 points. Blake Griffin, yes, the former Detroit Pistons and Brooklyn Nets guard, amassed 13 points as well. For the Raptors, it was Pascal Siakam, amassing 29 points for them. Scottie Barnes scored 21 points. Gary Trent Jr. had 20 points, while OG Anunoby had 13 points for the Raptors, but it wasn't enough. The defeat now means that the Raptors are 12 wins and 12 losses to the start of the season, even, you want to say. While for the Boston Celtics, I said earlier, they are on an amazing run of 7 wins in their last 8 games, and they now have 20 wins and just 5 defeats to the start of the season. The Celtics definitely have moved past the scandal that rocked them just before the commencement of the season, talking about Coach Ime Udoka's illicit affair with a female member of the organization, which led to his suspension for the entirety of the ongoing season. So the Boston Celtics will be taking on the Phoenix Suns on Wednesday, and that's a matchup that should be intriguing, and I'm sure they will fancy their chances of getting an 8th win in 9 games. While for the Toronto Raptors, they'll be taking on the in-form Los Angeles Lakers on Wednesday. That's definitely a difficult matchup for the Toronto Raptors, considering that Anthony Davis as well as LeBron James are firing on all cylinders at this point in time, especially AD Anthony Davis. Well, that's where we'll start from, talking about our review of round of 16 matches that took place yesterday. We would preview that of today as well. But let's start with Croatia. Yes, Croatia against Japan. For Japan, they found themselves in what is probably an unfamiliar territory, considering that the wins against Spain and Germany required they had to come from behind. But this time around, they were the ones that took the lead against Croatia. And you had Maeda getting the opening goal for them in the first half. Quite, a well-taken goal there. Brilliant play by Japan. I'm talking about how brilliant the counter-attacking plays are. It's always decisive. It's not necessarily fluid in terms of the pace, but more importantly, about the precise passes in the build-up to, their goals and their counter-attacking attempts. And that's what we had yesterday as well, as they tried to catch Croatia napping. And Maeda got them the goal early on, but Croatia responded with Ivan Perisic, just sending that header beyond the reach of the Japanese goalkeeper, and that ensured that the match went the entire duration and got down to penalties, where the Japanese lost 3 of 4. You had Takumi Minamino, former Liverpool man, losing. You had Mitoma losing as well. Only Asano scored from the penalty spot for the Japanese, as Yoshida also lost his own spot kick. Meanwhile, for the Croatians, there were 3 out of 4 in terms of dispatching to the back of the net. You had Lasevic leading on Brozovic of Inter Milan getting through as well, while Livaya missed out his penalty. You had Pasalic scoring the decisive penalty kick that sent Croatia into the quarterfinals. Remember, they were the finalists last time out, while for the Japanese, the road has ended, talking about round of 16, and it's not another hurdle for the Japanese. They played so well, impressed so many with their style of play, especially the famous wins they had over Germany and Spain during the course of the group stages, where they topped that group. In fact, where a group that had Germany, Spain, Costa Rica, the Japanese topped. Unfortunately, they just fell short on penalties. The Croatians are through, and they're just 2 wins away from a possible repeat when it comes to hitting the finals of the World Cup, as they did 4 years ago. Let's see if Luka Modric, the fine one at 37, arguably one of the best midfielders in the world, probably top 3, if he can repeat that feat in terms of leading the side to the quarterfinals. They'll be taking on the Brazilians, and that's a difficult matchup for Croatia. Now, talking about the Brazilians, they were in action. It was definitely going to be a blowout against South Korea, because they've played 7 times prior to yesterday's match, and Brazil has won 6 of 7. The last time they played was in June, and that was a 5-1 win for Brazil in a friendly match. So the Brazilians were in action as well, and this time around, Neymar made a return. More importantly, got a goal, got himself the man of the match award as well. Richarlison scored a fantastic goal once again. You had that Joga Bonito on display, which is the famous samba football that Brazil is known for. The ball juggling of a thing by Richarlison, making use of his head to juggle the ball about 3 times before controlling the slick movement of passes between Paqueta, Thiago Silva, Richarlison, and the mix, and the finish. It was just Brazil at its finest. Vinicius Jr. also played a part, and right there on your screen you can see the players playing tribute to the legendary Pelé, the only player who has won 3 World Cup titles. The 82-year-old has been in hospital for quite some days, and there were reports that he was placed at the end-of-life extensive care unit and all of that, which has brought about an outpour of tributes and prayers and well wishes to the legendary Brazilian, which some deem as the greatest footballer of all time. The 3 players who are always in that discussion or debate. You talk about Pelé of Brazil, you talk about Diego Armando Maradona of blessed memory, talking about the Argentine great, and you also talk about another Argentine known as Lionel Messi. Well, regardless of who you think is the greatest of all time, these players have definitely served up the good. So the match there, Brazil earning an impressive win, 4-1 win over the South Korea. You had it was a role in the first half. Really, they had booked their place in the first half even before Seung-kyu Park got the goal. I said earlier that Neymar made a return and also got a goal for himself from the penalty spot, and it was also historic for Neymar because he is just the 3rd Brazilian to score in at least 3 different World Cups. The other 2 players to achieve such a feat, you have Pelé, who scored in 4 successive World Cups, starting from 1958 to 1962 to 1966 and 1970. You also have Ronaldo de Lima, who some have argued as, or touted rather, as the greatest striker of all time, who scored in 1998, 2002 and the 2006 World Cups. Let's turn our attention now to today's matches. Quite interesting ones, it must be said. Let's start with Morocco against Spain. That's the only African team standing at this point, although when you consider the level, you say there were 2 African teams standing. We had Senegal in round of 16, Morocco in round of 16, but as at this competition, it's just Morocco left in terms of African teams. They'll be taking on Spain, and for the Spanish team, we hear that Morata is set to lead the lines once again. Remember, he started the first 2 matches from the bench, got goals. The third match against Japan, he started that match and also got a goal there. So 3 games, 3 goals for Alvaro Morata, who says it won't start once again. Let's see how that fares for the Spanish, but they've not really been impressive, it must be said, this competition. Yes, they started the competition on fire, dispatching Costa Rica by 7 goals to 0, and that seemed to underline their title credentials. But when formidable sides came on board, like the Germans, like the Japanese, they were only able to score 2 goals in those 2 matches, and more importantly, considered 3. So it shows you that as much as the win over Costa Rica was quite overwhelming and impressive, against the formidable side, the Spanish can be caught wanting or be found wanting, as it were. So let's move away from there and talk about Portugal now. Yes, the Portuguese will be in action against Switzerland. Now that's a stand test because the Swiss are no pushovers in the group that had Brazil, Cameroon, Serbia. They finished runner-up to the Brazilians. But for all of the talks about the quality of both sides, it's Ronaldo's outburst following a substitution in the last game of the group stage against South Korea that has caught the attention of the media, and that has swelled over the Portuguese camp to this very moment. Let's see if Ronaldo will start, even as Santos, the coach of Portugal, has said he doesn't like the outburst. So the question is, will he drop Ronaldo and start someone else, or will Ronaldo play? Whatever the disciplinary measure is, I'm sure we'll find out when the lineup is released.